topic of counter UAV capability. We are honored to have Air Marshal G.S Bedi, who brings with him a wealth of knowledge and experience in this field. So let's have a huge round of applause for him, everyone.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see still reasonably well attended session. This is when we are talking of counter US capability, why this is important. You visit any show, any exhibition, case in point, last Aero India show I visited, there's not a single stall which will not tell you, which will not have a UAV, listed in some form or the other. But whatever you might be selling, there is a UAV listed because it's fashionable to have a UAV displayed. But very little is talked about counter UAV because somehow when we develop UAV capability, we do not think that it's going to become a problem also. Indications of UAV creating problem are there since long. That is, if you go to cases at Heathrow Airport, where some enthusiasts launched drones and, they wanted to see very, surprisingly, what is pilot doing inside the cockpit when he's coming to land. There was a case in Heathrow where, those guys are watching landing and he just launched a drone, took it very close to the cockpit, just wanting to see that what is pilot actually doing inside. Okay, then the airport had to be closed. Similar case in Gatwick, etc. And coming to military operations, we have so many cases in Punjab, where BSF every day it was a news item that they are capturing drones coming from across, they are carrying drugs. Now they're carrying drugs, they well could carry weapons. And now, after that Ukraine and Russia war or even Hamas operation have amply brought out what drones can do. So why have they become important? I think these drones bring two capabilities with themselves. One is depth of magazine, and secondly is adverse exchange ratio for the enemy. Now, what this means in military terms, depth of magazine is simple. Like, you have a pistol, you have limited rounds. You can fire, 6 rounds in a revolver, 21 rounds in a, pistol, etc., etc. After all, they'll finish. If I were to have, long magazine, we would say the magazine has got a great depth. Very cheap drones, $5,000, $10,000 countries can produce, and, thousands are used every day in Ukraine-Russian conflict. So there is a large depth of magazine and adverse exchange ratio for the enemy that it takes you $1 million missile to shoot down a $5,000 drone. Okay. Now question is it avoidable? It's not avoidable because point is not whether what is the cost of my missile which is shooting this drone. Point is what damage can that drone create on the ground. You are saving that value. So you are not to compare $1 million with the cost of drone. The cost comparison is what damage this drone could create. But the fact is that it does create adverse exchange ratio for the enemy. So this is something, when you build a capability, you have to think of a counter. Now, I'll just present a few options. I had written about it a while ago, and those days C4I concept was very prominent. Command, control, communication, and intelligence. So from that C4I had devised or derived a acronym D4I. Which I called detect, disrupt, disable, and destruct and intercept. Means you had to build capability, anti-drone capability in all spheres. There is no one size fits all. Okay, you had to uh, build capability in different domains because you don't know which domain will work where. Because what can this drone do? This drone can do ISR, your intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. It can undertake that operations. It can carry weapons. It can carry weapon itself. We have seen kamikaze drones also, or even not even kamikaze. the simple grenade, hand grenades being used under a normal drone, and it goes and throws that grenade in the turret of a tank and blows up the tank, whole tank. So that kind of capability it brings, and also it can direct weapons. Now if I have a legacy weapon, legacy rifle which cannot aim straight, and I have a drone which can guide me to the exact target, then what have you done? You have turned a legacy weapon into a sniper rifle. You got that capability where you can pinpoint and shoot. Now, traditional air defense systems, which the countries had, they were catering for large aircraft, because you had aircraft, you had to cater for the aircraft. So your radar systems, your guns, your anti-aircraft measures, they all catered for large aircraft. And when drones arrived on the scene, we are talking of very low and slow machine, which can hover, which can fly below the radar horizon also, and which can suddenly surprise you, can use terrain effect, can use, shadowing of the building, etc. So you definitely need to develop a different kind of capability for this. And now, initially when radars, they started thinking of radars, that let's have radars for drone detection. What did you have in mind at that time? That what were drones closest to? Drones were closest to birds. So they started converting legacy avian radars, which were used for bird detection, and modified them for drone detection. Now these radars essentially used S-band and X-band kind of configuration. S-band for very long range to detect migratory birds. That to know, because these large airliners in America, etc., they were affected by migratory birds, and we all know the bird hit landing in Hudson River because of a bird hit, because of a flock of bird went into the engine. So they wanted to detect this kind of thing. So now, but what happens is, in case of birds, a false positive or a false negative. Now what is false positive? That something is not there, but it's telling you it's there. Or false negative, that something is there and the system tells you it's not there. In case of birds, it did not make much of a difference, because even if a lone bird went undetected, it wasn't really, I mean, bird never aims to hit an aircraft. It's an incidental hit. But a drone has got a purpose. It's coming with a purpose. So while an undetected bird did not do much of a harm to you, and FAA data showed the success rate of these, detection radars was not very high, but they still served useful purpose, because they eventually avoided a lot of bird hits. But when it comes to drones, you cannot afford to have false negative or false positive, because even a single drone went undetected can do a lot of damage. Now there are a number of ways you can detect drones. You have your EO/IR system, that is electro-optical or IR cameras, in which you physically look around and see the drones. But they have limitation, because they are range limited, they are weather limited. If it's foggy conditions, you may not see EO this thing, or if it's moist or some other environmental, even IR may not work. Okay. Then you have RF sensors, radio frequency. Most of the drones they saw were being controlled by some pilot. Somebody was flying them. So if you disrupted the RF link between the drone and the pilot, then you could probably disrupt its operations. Now, but what happens is, most of the drones then became autonomous. They're flying on inertial navigation system. They don't need a GPS also. There is no pilot flying them. And even if a pilot was flying them, your anti-UAV systems which you developed, RF technology, was only catering for ISM compliant kind of people, like, industrial, scientific, medical, that is 2.4 or 5 gigahertz or 400 or 900 megahertz sort of frequency. But if enemy was to go out of these frequencies, your standard counter drone systems won't work. So you had to develop a capability which goes beyond this off the shelf, commercially off the shelf equipment, which only catered for this ISM kind of capability. Then you come to radar. Like I said, that X band became very popular, because it gives you decent range, about 5, 6, 10 kilometers of range, and it detected a drone reasonably well. But that was still the, drones which had reasonable size. But now you are, getting from nano onwards up to, very small drones which can hover. So what do you need to do to detect a drone? You need not only Doppler shift, you need micro Doppler shift. What is a Doppler shift? I mean, just as a simple analogy, Doppler shift is created when something is moving towards you or away from you. The frequency with which you are wanting to detect it changes depending on whether it is coming towards you or going away to from you. That simple example which they give is whistle of the train. Old timers, when the trains used to whistle, you realize that when the train was approaching, the pitch of the whistle carried on increasing and it continued to decrease when the train was moving away from you. But what happens is now the drone is not coming towards you at that speed. So you have to detect its propeller rotation. That to do that you need a very high radar frequency, so something like Ku band. So I'm making a point that most of the drone operators or radar detectors, not drone operators, radar operators are really not getting into this Ku band, okay, which can give you sure shot detection of micro Doppler shift. Why? Because a single radar does not give you that kind of range. So if a Ku band says my range is 3 kilometers, the customer is not interested. He says, no, I want to detect it at 5, 10 kilometers. So you probably have to get series of these radars. It needs to be impressed upon that sure shot detection is more important, and range can be enhanced by employing number of radars. Okay. Then there is a way, we say interception or destruction. There are kinetic kills or non-kinetic kills. Kinetic kill means I get my own drone up, get into the drone's way and destroy it. But you run the risk of greater damage, because if that drone is armed, if it's carrying some kind of weapon, wherever it falls or gets intercepted, it's going to create more damage on the ground than probably it would have done otherwise, because now you have double whammy. You have weapon load of the drone and the drone itself, or two drones for that matter. And when it comes to non-kinetic kill, you have lasers, you have HPMs. Now lasers are being developed, but what happens is when you demonstrate a laser, you are demonstrating it in under laboratory conditions. Means you say, okay, this is uh, one object is fixed, you have ideal conditions, you got dwell time of 15-20 seconds, the range is to your favor, and you can show that you are hitting exactly at the same spot which you want to burn. But in actual conditions where your detection is late, where a guy is coming on your head, you got to point, you need steady dwell time, etc. So a lot of practice and a lot of pre-warnings are required for this kind of operation, and more so that nowadays the threat is not going to be a single drone. It is going to be in way of swarms. They are like we hear. So laser, etc. If it has to disable a single drone, probably it has to pick up a very right piece of drone which is going to now give up all the swarm communication. Otherwise, HPM, high power microwave, is a more suitable weapon to disrupt swarm communication, because swarms, when they come, they are talking to each other. I mean, if you see 100 drones, there aren't 100 pilots flying those individual drones. They're all talking to each other, and if they're talking to each other, then obviously there is some kind of communication and a link which we need to address as. Okay, and finally, interception. There are now drones available, interceptor drones, which actually throw a net kind of thing and disable the drone. It can carry a drone to a safe position. That means this interceptor drone is auto launched. It has got a radar which detects the drone, launches it automatically. It goes towards the drone. It has got its own airborne radar, because even if your ground radar is jammed, the airborne drone has got its own radar. It can detect the hostile drone, go close to it through its machine learning and AI function, throw a net, capture it, and carry it to a safe position where it can gently lower it down rather than causing damage. So my point is, all this I have covered in the time available, is that it is very important that while developing drones we pay equal attention to anti-drones capability, because they are going to, your inability to counter a drone is going to cost us much more than anything else, and not a single. I mean, people need not go for one. You need a combination of all this, because you don't know what will work. And in the war, they say whatever works is right, whatever doesn't work is wrong. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much for your time, sir.